Bob Jones University, a school which has been accused of being anti-Catholic, bans interracial dating and homosexuals.
The school is free of drugs, sex, and alcohol. You have a dress code. Anyone breaks this, they're out. Can they dance?
No.
No. Can they hold hands?
No. The Pope could be saved if he would embrace Jesus Christ and his finished work on the cross. You've talked about the now controversial Bob Jones University. The truth is, I guess, we've always been controversial. Yep. We believe the Bible, and that makes you controversial today.
Bob Jones University is a fully unaccredited university located in bustling Greenville, South Carolina. It has an enrollment of 5,000 students and boasts over 150 majors, including Jesusology, Jesusism, Jesusmatics, Applied Jesusmatics.
And in fact, Bob Jones University has been called the West Point of Christian colleges.
Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about the holy Christian college hell that is Bob Jones University.
When a young person comes to Bob Jones University, he's coming, as it were, to a boot camp. We're training servants of Christ for his army.
Now, Bob Jones University is usually the only college option that homeschool Christians could get their parents to pay for or even approve. The entire school was built on the foundation of creating an alternative options to the horrors of secular universities, and has such liberal policies as letting women begin to wear pants in 2018. Not to mention, the school really puts the K in Christian college, and by that I mean the KKK. Bob Jones, the founder, has some pretty shocking ties to the Klan, and one could say that he's a man free to have his own politics separate from the university, but the university had incredibly racist policies on the books up until the year 2000, which were mainly on their prohibition of interracial marriage for students. You wouldn't be admitted if you were in an interracial marriage, and you would be expelled if you got into an interracial marriage or were dating interracially or were found to be promoting interracial marriage. Incredibly messed up. Yes, we'll get into all of this. So in this video, we're going to be going over the founder Bob Jones himself, what led him to create such a school, his ties to the KKK, and then the controlling, sexist, and racist rules the school has gone through the years, and we will go through the current Bob Jones student manual and try to figure out what life at this university would be like for the unfortunate 2,700 students in attendance in 2026. Now, as we can all imagine, the school was founded by a man named Robert Reynolds Jones. You weren't imagining that? Okay, well, he just went by Bob Jones, so that's what we were imagining. And he was born in 1883. Old man. He's dead now. But he was the 11th of 12 children, and he was born to a farming family in Alabama, and his father, Alexander Jones, was interestingly a Confederate Civil War veteran, which I think may give us some context to the racist decisions he would make in the school's heyday. His father was a devout Methodist, and his mother was a Primitive Baptist, which is just a really old-school, hardcore Calvinist Baptist. The family did attend a Methodist church, though, and that is a denomination that Bob chose to convert to at 11. It was there that Bob became the superintendent of a Sunday school at 12, which I have no earthly idea what that means. And he held his first revival meeting at his home church, and saw 60 conversions in a single week, allegedly. At 13, he built a shelter and organized his own congregation of 54 members. Is it just me, or does this really sound like the beginnings of a cult leader? And we'll get into it. The school's basically just a cult. Bob was not given a great education, but his dad made him memorize passages from the Bible. By age 15, he was a licensed circuit preacher for the Alabama Methodist Conference. A year later, he was called to the headland circuit of 5 churches, including one he had started, and he was earning $25 a month, worth $945 today, for his labors. The following year, he entered Southern College, later Birmingham Southern College, in Greensboro, Alabama, supporting himself with his preaching. He attended until 1904, but by then was already so prominent as an evangelist that he left without taking a degree. On June 17th of 1908, he married Mary Glaston Stolenrack, whom he had met as a choir member. Their only child, Bob Jones Jr., was born October 19th, 1911, and Bob Sr. really popped off. he became a huge American preacher, apparently preaching to a total of about 15 million people, face to face, before microphones and TV. He converted many people to Methodism and Christianity in general. I want to set the scene for the world in which Bob was preaching in. In the 1920s, American Christianity was going through a very tumultuous time. It was the Fundamentalist Modernist controversy. Yay! And this was a major schism in the Presbyterian Church in the United States. So the Fundamentalists were very similar to fundamental Christians today. I like the term biblical literalist. I think that describes them really succinctly. So they believe everything in the Bible is literal and above questioning. In their eyes, to be a Christian, you have to believe that the Bible is without flaws and entirely correct, and that everything in it absolutely 100% happened. There was 100% a Virgin Mary, the earth is 6,000 years old, and God created the earth in no less, no more than 6 human days. Evolution is not real. Jesus was resurrected from the dead in physical form, etc., etc., etc. Now, the modern Christians were arguing against this. They were not saying those things didn't happen, but just saying that maybe evolution does line up with the Bible. Looking at biblical context was more important to them. They saw it kind of as more of that historical book where you need the history behind it to understand what Jesus was trying to tell people. And that some things that made sense 2,000 years ago may not make sense now. They were very similar to the progressive Christians that we would call today. Honestly, not much has changed in Christian thought. Now, Bob Jones was a fundamentalist, obviously, and the fundamentalists became deeply concerned with the way that Christian children were going off to secular colleges and coming home raging atheists. So, in 1925, Jones and his wife were driving in South Florida talking about the need for an Orthodox Christian college as an alternative to what he perceived to be both a loss of state and denominational colleges to secularism. After stopping for some sandwiches, Jones announced, just as a clap of thunder out of clear sky, that he was going to found such a school. His wife's first response was, "Robert, are you crazy?"
Your grandfather started it,
That's
right?
right.
As a reason for starting it? Did he feel a need for this?
Good question, Larry. He was an evangelist, contemporary of Billy Sunday back in the teens and 20s of this country. And as he traveled, he found that young people were having their faith stolen, their morals destroyed at college. He said, you know, there needs to be a place where they can get the highest in academics and not come away with their faith destroyed, but strengthened, and their confidence in the Bible strengthened. So he said, I'm going to start a school. My grandmother said, Bob, you're crazy. And he said, well, I know I'm not an educator, but I can borrow the educational brain. So he did. He knew his limitations. He said, but I know the philosophy that ought to be here.
And he did just flat out make it happen, which is really impressive. And just 2 years later, in 1927, the school opened in St. Andrews Bay, Florida. At the beginning, they only had 88 students. He did not have a college degree, but here he was opening a college founded on running away from science. Very interesting. The school barely survived bankruptcy. Bob did not even take a salary from the school. He was actually supporting it with his own money and preaching. And in 1933, the college moved to Cleveland, Tennessee for cheaper land, and just 13 years later actually became the biggest liberal arts college in Tennessee, which was massively expanded by the post-World War II GI Bill.
After World War II, there was this huge influx of veterans. They'd seen their friends blown to bits in the foxholes. They understood that eternity was real and soon, and all that mattered to them was getting men ready to live with Christ eternally. So they used the GI Bill, and they started flooding. We couldn't expand, so we were looking for a place, and the Lord led us to Greenville, South Carolina.
Now, before we get to Bob Jones Jr., I want to focus on the senior just a little bit more and give you some more information on who was running this school. Bob Jones Sr. was a supporter of the Ku Klux Klan, which, if you are not from the U.S., the Klan, also known as the KKK, was an American Protestant, extremely far right-wing hate group who are really known for two things: hating Catholics, and the big one being violent white supremacists. They are frequently cited as America's first terrorist organization, as they were founded in 1865 in response to the Reconstructionist era. These are incredibly racist people. I cannot stress that enough if you do not understand what the KKK was. They still exist today, unfortunately, but they are not good people, alright? Now, welcome to the part of the history lesson you will not find on the BJU website. Evidence of his ties to the KKK, which includes him publicly accepting a $1,600 donation from them, which was in 1920s money. And in today's money, when you put that through one of those little converters, it comes up to $260,000 today. Now, he was also friends with Bibb Graves, who was Alabama's governor at the time and a fervent supporter of the KKK. And Bibb Graves was a founding member of Bob Jones University, and his name was on a residence hall, which has since been changed. I wonder why. I found this amazing dissertation that I'm going to put up on screen because I cannot find the title right now. And it says this about a speech that Bob Jones Sr. gave involving a letter he read aloud from the KKK. Quote, on December 31st of 1923, Jones addressed the organization at their regular meeting at Montgomery's First Baptist Church. As he began his lecture, the evangelist pulled out a letter from the Montgomery Klan No. 3 realm of Alabama, Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, which praised the work being done by the council. The letter, which included a $50 donation to the council, emphasized the Klansmen's great interest and strong approval of the work of the Protestant Christian Council. Jones then read his response, in which he thanked the Klan for supporting the moral side in every political battle in this country. Caught red-handed with his pants down, am I right? So some would argue that the Klan was just a part of the American Protestant South in this era, and that they were more known for political action propping up white Protestant nationalism than racial violence. Because unfortunately, it was really common for American historical figures from the South to have huge ties to the Klan. There's a bunch of universities in the South, in North South Carolina, in Alabama, and Tennessee, who have KKK members or people associated with the KKK as dorm buildings who had racist policies. However, Bob Jones Sr. would continue to say very racist and separatist things until his death. So he was not just supporting fellow Protestant Christians there, he was well acquainted with their ideas.
Just what exactly are the great historical accomplishments of your race that make you proud to be white? Capitalism, slavery, genocide, sitcoms? This is your fucking white history, my friend. So why don't we start making a history worth being proud of and start fighting the real fucking enemy? Swastikas and Klan robes? Sexist, racist, homophobes?
In 1947, Bob Jones Jr. took over the university's presidency, and then they moved to Greenville, South Carolina, where they would stay to this day. Now, the accreditation issue. Bob Jones Sr. was very against accreditation from the beginning. In 1944, Jones wrote to John Warlord of the Dallas Theological Seminary that while the university had no objection to educational work highly standardized, we, however, cannot conscientiously let some group of educational experts or some committee of experts who may have a behavioristic or atheistic slant on education control or even influence the administrative policies of our college. 5 years later, Jones reflected that it cost us something to stay out of an association, but we stayed out. We have lived up to our convictions. Now, in the early days of the college, this was an issue. It's a brand new university, founded by a random dude with like 100 people in attendance. There were obviously some issues with transferring credits and recognizing degrees. However, Bob Jones did make a name for itself over time as a genuine institution, and by the 1960s, many of their graduates would go on to get masters and doctorates from other universities who accepted their BJU degree. race. However, in 2006, they gave up on this hardline stance and became accepted into the Transnational Association of Christian Colleges and Schools. They are a newer accreditation group and have only been recognized by the U.S. Department of Education since 1991, and the Council for Higher Education since 2001. Now, they are best known for accrediting Liberty University and some other strange Christian colleges. Video coming on other Christian colleges, I promise. Now, Trax has gotten a lot of criticism for barely gaining the right to accreditate, and nearly lost it a few times. They also give accreditation to colleges of like 12 people, and they care how the school teaches the Bible way more than what the school's actual academic curriculum is. Now, in 2017, BJU did receive an accreditation from the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, and that one is definitely real, so they are officially accredited now. Some more housekeeping real quick. In 1971, Bob Jones III becomes president, so we got a new guy. Now that we've done some office paperwork, let's get back into the horrors of the school. So not only was Bob Jones Sr. in with the Klan, and not only did the Klan support BJU, but Bob Jones University has on the books been an incredibly racist institution. And I promise it is far worse than you may realize. The school just did not admit a black student until 1971. But just because you admitted someone doesn't mean that all of your racist issues were in the past. Nope. They would only admit black married students until 1975, despite admitting unmarried students of all of the races. And after that, they continued to deny admissions to applicants engaged in interracial marriage or known to advocate interracial marriage or dating. The university also imposed a disciplinary rule that prohibited interracial dating, and you would literally get expelled if you were supporting interracial dating or doing it.
I understood the policy when I came here, and if I couldn't abide by it, then I would have just applied somewhere else. If they asked us to wear stocking caps in summertime, then I either do it or I can go somewhere else.
The students don't talk about it a lot because it's not something that's a big issue to us, because we all know, that when you come here, you're going to have to deal with that. And if it's going to be a problem, then don't come here to school.
I think you should be free to date whoever you want, but I don't personally agree with, I wouldn't probably date opposite, but just because of all the reactions from other people, but you should be able to do what you want to do.
This created a legal nightmare wherein the IRS and Bob Jones University fought on whether or not they were so racist they could no longer be a tax-exempt organization. Now, this culminated in the very famous Supreme Court case, Bob Jones University versus the United States of America, 1983. Now, in case you were wondering, the Supreme Court did decide they were so racist that they lost their tax-exempt status. And BJU actually was proud of losing this tax-exempt status. They were using it as a badge of honor to show how they valued their religion over money.
We're not going to the Supreme Court fighting for our rule and our policy. We're fighting for our right to it. There's a religious freedom issue.
And they continued to just not allow interracial dating until Bob Jones University president, Bob Jones III, went on Larry King Live in the year 2000 and began to defend their policy.
Why can't black kids date white kids?
Well, being a Bible-believing institution, Larry, we try to base things on Bible principle. The problem we have today is that our principle is so greatly misunderstood. People think we don't let them date because we're racist. No, to be racist, you have to treat people differently. We don't. We don't let them date because we were trying, as an example, to enforce something, a principle that is much greater than this. We stand against the one world government, against the coming world of Antichrist, which is a one world system, a blending of all differences, a blending of national differences, economic differences, church differences, into a big one ecumenical world. Okay, the Bible's very clear about this. We said, way back years ago when we first had a problem, which was, by the way, we started this principle back in the mid-50s. I was a college student at BJU at the time, and it was with an Asian and Caucasian. we didn't even have black students for another 15 years. So it was not put there as a black thing. I think people need to understand that.
So the fear of one world relates back to two people dating?
Yeah. We realize that an interracial marriage is not going to bring in the world the Antichrist by any means. But if we as Christians stand for Christ and not Antichrist, and we see, we're against the one world church. We're against one economy, one political system. We see what the Bible says about this. So we say, okay, if they're going to blend this world, and interracial marriage is a genetic blending, which is a very definite sort of blending, we said, let's put this policy in here, because we're against the one world church. And we have the rule because it was a part of a bigger, it wasn't the rule itself. We can't point to a verse in the Bible that says you shouldn't date or marry interracial.
You can't back it up.
No, we can't back it up with a verse in the Bible. We never have tried to. We never have tried to do that. But we've said there is a principle here, an overriding principle of the one world government. Let me tell you how insignificant this is. Students never hear it preached. There have been 4, 5, 6 generations of students that graduated from there have never heard this preached in our chapel or taught in our school. To us, it's
but it's a rule, though. They know they can.
It is, but it's the most insignificant thing. But now we're being defined as a racist school. I mean,
obviously, Larry King made him look pretty bad and stupid, and so on there, he ended it and said, actually, those are all old policies, and as of today, it's over.
During the era, the era of segregation, segregationists said, well, we're not racist. We just think the races should be apart. They should be treated equally, but not together. And that was regarded as a kind of a cop-out. You think maybe, I mean, you could change that? You think it's a stretch? Maybe. In other words, have you given thought to maybe that's taking it too far, down to two people into a whole one world concept?
Yeah. I don't think it's taking it too far, but I can tell you this. We don't have to have that rule. In fact, as of today, we've dropped the rule.
Today?
Today.
And after that, they did just have a rule that you should tell your parents if you're interracially dating. And I'm really not sure where that rule has gone today. If you went to BJU, let me know. I'm actually really curious on that because I couldn't find it in the handbook. Doesn't mean it's not there. I just couldn't find it. So yeah, he goes on Larry King Lives, gets called out, gets told he's racist.
It is ended. I want it to be very clear why it is ended. Our concern for the cause of Christ, our concern for our graduates, our concern for our testimony, our concern for the school's broader usefulness is greater to us than a rule that we never talk about and that is meaningless to us. The principle upon which it's based is very, very important.
I understand.
But the rule itself is not. So we did away with it.
Gone today.
But it really doesn't seem like he went on Larry King Live to drop that. It really seems like a spontaneous thing because he was defending it. And then he got back into a corner and it was like, oh no, big eraser on that part of the BJU handbook. At least it's good that it's gone now. Now let's get into BJU being a Christian marriage factory. They participate heavily in ring by spring culture and even have formal things in their student handbooks of how you are supposed to be married. So if you get engaged, you have to register your engagement by seeing your residence hall supervisor and then obtaining parental approval. And once you have done that, you may spend 6 nights per semester at the home of one of the parents. You may be off campus alone in a public space in the Greenville area with parental consent. These are adults who are engaged. On and off campus, there is to be no physical contact between unmarried men and women. Side hugs permitted for photographs. So, yeah, you can't touch your engaged spouse at all. You can't hold hands on campus.
Can students date at Bob Jones University?
Oh yeah, I found my wife there.
Can they hold hands?
No.
Why is holding hands bad?
It's not bad in itself. But the Bible teaches us to be distrustful of the flesh. It says put no confidence in the flesh. The physical familiarity in a close environment of young people can get out of hand very quickly, out of control very quickly.
Now, if you're engaged and you want to get married so you can have that sweet, sweet benefit of getting to hold hands on campus, or maybe do a hug, like a real hug, not just a side hug. Oh my god, that's crazy. You have to get married, but you can only get married between semesters and not during the semester, according to the handbook. Now, what would it be like to be a student at BJU in the year 2025? Well, lucky for us, they are fast and loose with that handbook, and you can just get it online. So let's go through it. Now, I don't want to read the entire handbook verbatim, but it's basically all outrageous and very interesting. So I'm going to paraphrase and highlight and put the original text on the screen over here for anyone who thinks I'm exaggerating. The broader topic categories, the big kahuna burgers, if you will. So they have banned their students from getting abortions. You will be expelled. Being transgender is bad, and engaging in transgender or homosexual sexual activity is also banned. And they have explicitly added that even if it's consensual. I'm going to read this entire part because it is wild that they had the gall to phrase it like this and post it like this in 2026. Consistent with our commitment to God's design for gender identity, the public advocacy for or act of altering one's biological sex through medical transition or transgender expression is prohibited. Any same-sex dating or advocacy for such is also prohibited. BJU's perspective on gender identity also applies to, but is not limited to, the use of bathrooms, locker rooms, student housing, attire policies, and participating in sex-specific university groups, clubs, and organizations. Additionally, any sexual behavior that's inconsistent with these standards, including sexual intercourse, other sexually intimate forms of touching, and sexual communication in written, verbal, or visual form, is prohibited even when consensual. So massive homophobes, massive transphobes, just you can't be gay or trans. Just to know. They just said you can't be gay or trans. And people do get expelled all the time for being gay and trans at this university, in case you're wondering if they actually pulled this. They do.
What's the feeling of your institution toward gays?
We believe it's very clear from the Scripture that homosexuality is a sin. Very clear. Adultery is a sin. There are many other sins.
But adultery is a chosen act. Do you think homosexuality is chosen, that someone decides hetero, homo, I'll be homo?
No, absolutely not. God would not call it a sin if it was something a person couldn't help. God would be cruel to send a man to hell for something he couldn't help.
So you think he does choose it?
I think he does choose it. Absolutely, he chooses it.
So why would someone choose homosexuality? If you had the choice in this world where you're going to be hit against and discriminated against, why would you choose homosexuality?
Why would a man choose to break his wife's heart and cheat on his wife? Why would a man choose to take drugs and destroy himself? Why would he choose this? It's part of the perversity of sin that any of us choose sin. Man is a sinner by choice. Man chooses to do wrong. Man chooses to hurt the heart of God.
If you were gay, you couldn't be a student?
No. We would not keep a student in school. We would not keep an adulterer in school. We would not keep a thief in school. Homosexuality is a perversity. It is a choice of sin.
Drinking alcohol or doing any drugs, including misusing prescription drugs, is banned. You're not allowed to drink alcohol even if you are over 21 and even if you are off campus. And even if you were at home for your parents' house on Christmas Eve. If your friend who also goes to BJU hears an inclination that you may have consumed a beer at the ripe age of 23 at your family Christmas party with permission and support of your parents, you can be expelled. And you might wonder, does stuff like that actually happen? And the answer is yes. People get expelled all the time. And people get expelled just on the words of what other people said. So if other people just said that they saw someone do something, they will get expelled for it. And snitch culture is very, very prized. And we will get into that in just a little bit, I promise. But yes, people do snitch on other people. And they will say things like this. They have banned men and women touching on campus unless they are married. Side hugs for photographs are permitted, but that is it. Security chapter. We have no sex outside of marriage, no porn, written or photos, they specify. With the porn thing, if you are seen watching porn, you'll be sent to the Office of Student Life, and I'm pretty sure they will just make you do mandatory porn addiction counseling and then provide you with a software called Covenant Eyes, which basically just locks down your computer. I'm not sure how well that worked though, because Josh Duggar's wife put that on his computer, I'm pretty sure, and we all know that didn't stop him. So I'm not sure it works that well, but they will provide it for you to stop your sinful watching habits. So BJU stopped having their own mandatory church services on Sunday about 12 years ago, but they still have mandatory chapel on Monday through Thursday at 11, which is basically just daily church services. So 4 days a week you're doing that. And you have to be there, and they scan your ID on the way out to register attendance. And while you're at chapel, that is when they do room checks. So when you are at chapel, your RA will come into your room and make sure that it is spotless and that you don't have a poster of Taylor Swift on the wall. So you are going to their chapel 4 days a week, and they mandate that you go to a church off campus, which aligns with BJU's ideas of the Bible. So your first semester, you get to choose a church with your parents in the Greenville, South Carolina area, and you fill out a form to have on file about what church you're going to. They provide a pre-approved list of churches to help you not stray from the independent fundamentalist Baptist churches. And if you want to go to a church that's not on the pre-approved list, you have to submit a letter asking them to review your church, and you are not allowed to go to that church until they approve it. You're literally not allowed to go to a church that is not approved by both the university and your parents. You can't even go to a church if they don't approve it. And it's mandatory that you go to a church. So I hope you find an independent fundamentalist Baptist church there that you like. And there really is no shortage of them because BJU heavily pushes their students into starting their own churches, especially in the area. Now you are required to attend that church and required to do a midweek small group with that church. It says on their website, students are expected to attend all the Sunday morning activities of the local church they've chosen to attend, plus an additional worship service, plus midweek prayer meeting or small group as their church offers them. A student may have up to 4 absences total from weekly attendance requirements each semester for illness or travel, and you have to track this attendance online. The handbook says that if you make it a pattern to not attend church, you will be expelled. Now, we already mentioned that chapel meets Monday through Thursday at 11, and attendance is mandatory, and then on Friday you have society, which is kind of like Greek life at other schools, but more Christian, I think, and you are required to join a society. Now on Monday at 10:30 p.m., you have to go to discipleship meetings, which is a small group studying the Bible in your dorm room at 10:30 p.m., and that is also mandatory. Now they are just filling the days of these students with so much stuff, I don't know how they would ever have time to sin, am I right? Now, this college literally knows where their students are at all times, and I'm not exaggerating. Students live on campus all 4 years. Side note, the dorms are horrid. They're 5-person dorms, which should be illegal. And you legit have a 3-person bunk bed situation in some of them, where it looks like something you would see, again, in a prison. Now they have a curfew of 11 p.m. on weekdays and 12 p.m. on Friday or Saturday. If you want to stay out past that time, you have to have where you are going and who with approved first by your RA and your parents. And if you want to stay anywhere overnight, I have heard it has to be with a married couple. And if you want to go off campus anywhere in a mixed-sex group, it has to be a group of 3. And if you want to go home to your family's house, there has to be a chaperone over 21 years old or a BJU graduate. For social life on campus, students may be together in any well-lit area outside location from dawn until 10 minutes before curfew. Couples are not to socialize inside cars or in the parking garage. The activity center, battlefield, sand, volleyball courts, and home court are available to provide opportunities for social interaction, fellowship, and physical refreshment. Students, including mixed groups of at least 3, may meet at or near the pavilions for fellowship until 10 minutes before curfew. Couples should not be beyond Stadium View Drive, and students should not be behind the residence halls of the opposite sex. Men and women should guard their testimonies. They are not to be alone together in a classroom, rehearsal studio, or other room. You are not allowed to listen to music with any sinful behavior. All musical choices are to be intentionally conservative in style and are to avoid the markers of our current corrupt culture. Because the following musical styles consistently express these markers, students should avoid rock, pop, country, rap, and hip hop. What does that leave? Therefore, students may listen to the same style of worship music as their local church when off campus, when abiding by the biblical boundary prohibiting music that elevates or celebrates unethical, immoral, or sinful behavior, functioning with a biblically informed conscience, considering the conscience of others and respecting their personal testimonies. You can't wear headphones while walking around. You used to not be able to wear headphones at all, ever. Because they did not want you to be able to hide your sinful music habits, but it seems they have changed that. Many forms of modern dancing and the music to which they perform violates biblical principles due to their expressions of worldliness or sexually provocative nature. Dancing that contains these elements is prohibited. Now, I found this amazing video on YouTube that I would like to share with you all. This is a perfect culmination of this. It is these 5 BJU students dancing in their dorm room to a Christian gospel song. I would not call this a sexually provocative dance. I would not call this a scantily clad dance, and I would not call this worldly music.
Jesus, the Holy One, God's only begotten Son, worship Him and let His praises ring. He raised a dead from man, made Him to walk again. Voices once silent now can sing. When He says peace be still, with much obey His will, He speaks and blinded eyes can see. But greater than all
4 out of the 5 students in the video, according to the description, were expelled for making this video. Students are only allowed to attend G and PG rated movies and may view TV PG television programming in both their own personal home and the residence halls. Unrated content, including original series on streaming platforms such as Hulu or Netflix, frequently contains objectionable content that has not been cut to meet rating standards and is not appropriate. Yeah, you're literally not allowed to watch PG-13 movies, including in your home. Now, the BJU College uses a content filtering system that restricts access to biblically offensive material, and attempting to bypass that filter is a serious offense. Students are not to view celebrity websites, secular music lyric sites, and humor joke sites. If you know me, you know I love funky fashion. So let's get into this Bob Jones dress code. Most interestingly, women were not allowed to wear pants outside of their own dorm room until 2015, and women were not allowed to wear pants in class until 2018. And if it is unclear, they were making them wear skirts, which were formless, had to be thick enough not to show your underwear, and long enough not to show your knees when you sat down. And if it was during class hours, they had to be business casual skirts, which is why all of the pictures of BJU looked like this from before 2017. It's atrocious. These outfits are so bad. There are really cute business formal skirts, but they're hard to find, and these are not it. Now, I wanted to start off with a banger so you wouldn't think this is about to get boring. I mean, their dress code wants you to be boring, but it's so intense that you and I will be entertained. There is no unnaturally colored hair for men or women, and you may not get a tattoo while in attendance at Bob Jones. I'm kind of imagining now some well-meaning youth group leader dude, you know the type, and he gets this big cross tattoo and then gets in even bigger trouble with BJU over it. Additionally, you are not allowed to have piercings outside the ear, and no gauges, or what they call bars, in the ears, so they have a specific rule about industrial ear piercings, which is strange. It is hilarious to me as someone who has like super pierced ears, and I used to have some incredibly unique piercings, and this would be considered in the rules by that definition, which is pretty chill. Oh, and during the day, like during classes, they have different rules. So while attending classes, they're expected to dress business casual, but after 5 p.m., they can wear actual casual things. And then in your own room, it seems like you would be okay as long as your roommate doesn't think your pajamas are morally wrong or something. And that is where the similarities stop between men and women. So I'm going to do the misogyny thing and put men first here because honestly, their list is a little less intense, but it still would not be fun for anyone to have to follow this. So men's hair should be neat and professional. One natural color and masculine style. Off the collar, ears, and eyebrows. Sideburns no lower than the bottom of the ear. Man buns, ponytails, and mullets are not suitable. Men should stay clean shaven or maintain neatly trimmed facial hair. Facial hair should be established while away from campus. You heard them. No beards shall be grown on PJU campus. If you want a beard, you gotta come with it. Jesus didn't have a 5 o'clock shadow, and neither shall you. Men are allowed to wear finger rings, wristbands, and a single necklace under a shirt. Earrings and other piercings are not suitable. There shall be no tight pants. Christians and their tight pants, oh my god. No tight-fitting clothing of any kind. Shorts shall be 4 inches above the kneecap. For business casual, there shall be no jeans or sweatpants or camo pants or camouflage. This rule alone is enough to make me not want to go here. You know, everything else is pretty bad and I don't want to go there, but the no camouflage rule just solidifies it for me. That's just like the final nail in the coffin that's already full and nailed shut. Then I cannot go there because I wear cargo pants a lot. I personally own 3 pairs. It's intense. Do not take my cam out. They also have to wear collared shirts and no hoods on your jacket. That's a no-no. Alright, I'm tired of talking about men. To the ladies. For women, their hair should be neat and professional in presentation, natural colors, and a distinctly feminine style, whatever that means. Shave styles are not suitable. Necklines should be high enough and tops long enough to be suitably modest, no cleavage or midriff. Sleeveless tops must cover to the edge of the shoulder where a normal sleeve. Necklines should be no lower than 4 finger widths from the collarbone. For skirts, shorts, and dresses, slits should be no shorter than 2 inches above the kneecap. Athletic shorts should be no shorter than 4 inches above the kneecap. Hemlines of skirts and dresses should touch the kneecap. All clothing should not be ripped or have holes, no visible undergarments due to cut, sheerness of fabric, or tightness of fit, and clothes should not be form-fitting. Pants should be khaki, cotton, or synthetic material 2 inches above the ankle or longer. Can't wear denim, colored jeans, camouflage, sweatpants, exercise pants, bib overalls, joggers, cargo pants, or leggings. Dresses and tops should be free of writing and graphics and should not be athletic wear. Skirts should not be denim. I find this unfortunate for the homeschooled girlies. I know they love their jean skirts. Now, if you are just casually around campus after 5 p.m., then you are allowed to wear athletic t-shirts with sleeves and jeans that are well-fitting but not tight, and athletic pants, and you can wear like flip-flops or Crocs or whatever. In addition to stated casual attire, women can wear shorts that are no shorter than 4 inches above the kneecap now. And they have like 100 other rules. And now after hearing this insane list of rules, you might be thinking they could not possibly enforce this. And oh yeah, they do. And yes, the school charges fines for all of these things. They fine you for not having a clean room, for putting a picture of a Christian rock band on the wall. The school has such an intense snitch culture because the normal students at the school that are someone's friends, classmates, and roommates are often encouraged to snitch on each other under the guise that you're helping someone walk with God. But really, these are just homeschooled Christian children that are used to snitching on their sibling to get their parents off their own back. And it has to be because snitch culture is just not a thing at non-Christian colleges. At secular colleges, people will go to great lengths to help people get away with stuff. Even if you are not friends with someone, there's a large culture of it's not your business at secular colleges. But in Christian colleges, everyone wants to be in everyone's business. They have nothing better to do. They aren't even allowed to watch Jurassic World, for crying out loud. They're so bored, all they have to do is snitch on each other for some entertainment. That isn't considered ungodly gossiping somehow. Now, Bob Jones University has become an incredibly disturbing situation where, because alcohol drinking at any age of any kind is an expellable offense, if a student is drinking and gets hurt, sees their friend get hurt, is having a medical crisis, or finds themselves in dangerous situations or the victims of a crime, they will not feel comfortable going to authorities or getting help or talking about the incident. Bob Jones University has a very dark history of expelling women who were the victim of crimes while on or off campus while attending BJU, while drinking, and will never take any actions against the male student who did the thing. Additionally, many of the police officers and EMTs of Greenville, South Carolina are graduates of BJU, and they take that snitch culture to their career, where even if the children were off campus and BJU would have had no reason to know they were drinking, the local police will tell the girls that if they come forward with what has happened to them, then they will be expelled by BJU for drinking. And there's even been cases where police officers have caught children drinking and have called the school to anonymously report them for drinking, and they get expelled. Wild. So this school is absolute insanity, between the intense history of racism, to the inherent misogyny, to the fact that it's basically a college boarding school where homeschooled parents ship off their Christian children so they can remain under the watchful eye of their parents and school faculty until they find a nice Christian partner who can then watch them for the rest of their lives. The poor adults that go here are forced to live on campus for all 4 years in a dorm room with up to 5 people who are all watching you all of the time.
You say that you are an educator, but are you not stifling your young students? How can you expect them to go into the real world if they can't make their own decisions about dating, dress, and so forth?
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. You know, the real world is the world without Christ. We teach the Bible. We teach what the Bible has to say about human nature. Our students are quite astute about the real world. The truth is, I would have to ask, does West Point or Annapolis or the Air Force Academy stifle the ability of these men and women there to function and to lead by putting them under such regimen and making such demands, actually having a dress code for all areas of their campus life? No, they produce great leaders, great leaders. They give a great education. And indeed, if more institutions of America were doing what they're doing in terms of the discipline and the regimen and what we're trying to do at BJU, there would be a lot of difference. And in fact, Bob Jones University has been called the West Point of Christian colleges.
So they leave this college going into the world a rigorously crafted Christian conservative adult who has never been given the chance to live outside of someone else's watchful Christian eye. This sounds like a horrific experience. If you went to BJU, please tell me your stories in the comments, and if I got anything wrong, I've never gone there, and there's a real lack of people talking about the school online. So please let me know. I'm so intrigued by the school and how just insane they are. Alright, thank you for watching, and let me know what videos you want to see in the future.
As we affirm the basic tenets of our faith and say what we truly believe. I hope you can affirm that today. I believe in the inspiration of the Bible, both the Old and the New Testaments, the creation of man by the direct act of God, the incarnation and virgin birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, his identification as the Son of God, his vicarious atonement for the sins of mankind by the shedding of his blood on the cross, the resurrection of his body from the tomb, his power to save men from sin, the new birth, regeneration by the Holy Spirit, and the gift of eternal life by the grace of God. You may be seated.